Hi, Mickey here from Flippin' Spain. As promised, here is your project diary for my Illinois house, which is the worst flip I've ever done. First, let me give you some background. So I was on BiggerPockets, which I've mentioned to you before. It's a great place to research and learn, and it is a great place to make connections, but you do have to be careful that you fully vet the people that you're doing business with before you do business with them. So I was on there and I got contacted by another guy on there who was offering this line of credit, which would lend based on the cash you have in the bank. This sounded like a great deal because I had just sold a property, I had some money in the bank, and it didn't require that I keep that money in the bank, but it would lend me 4 times that amount. So I asked for an application and I started the process. He also then referred me to a real estate agent / project manager who would help me do an out-of-state flip by recommending a property, putting me in touch with contractors, and then managing the project and selling the house. However, the reality turned out to be a little bit different. Before we get into that, let's look at the house. I was living in Colorado, in Denver, and I have been to Chicago, but I wasn't really familiar with most of Illinois. So I had no idea about the neighborhoods, no idea about the market. So if you look at the map, you can see Chicago here, Milwaukee up here, and then this place called Lindenhurst. That's the house, 1903 Fairfield Road, Lindenhurst. Sort of right in the middle. Sounds good. Turns out there's no trains into Chicago or into Milwaukee, which is the way a lot of people who live out in these suburbs travel into the city. So could be a good commuter location, could not. If you zoom in, we see that it's sort of suburban. There's not really a whole lot there. That's all I can tell you about it. So the way it actually started working, this line of credit wasn't really a line of credit. It was a hard money loan, which means a very expensive loan. I had to make mortgage payments essentially, or loan payments. And there were a lot of fees involved. Like every time I asked for a draw to take some money to pay the contractors, I had to pay a fee. So anyway, I went ahead because I had already started talking to this agent and he recommended this house. The numbers that they gave me at first looked good. So the house was priced just under $160,000 and the rehab with parts and labor was going to cost about 40 grand. So that comes to about 200 grand. And they told me that it would sell for something in the region of $245 to $265. I did do a little bit of research online, and I was seeing prices sort of in that ballpark. It did seem a little high, but we had a chat about it, and they seemed very convinced. So I went ahead. The contractors did all their work. They did it on time. I was very happy about that. So they listed the house at their high price, and it sat there. And it sat there, and it sat there. We lowered the price a little bit to about $245. Then we went to $225. Finally got an offer for $185. You don't have to be good at math to know that at $185, I'm already losing money. The people did their inspection. It's not the worst one I've ever seen, but it's pretty darn close. All the highlighted stuff is the stuff we ended up fixing, but there were just outlets, windows broken, the window trims were rotted, living room bay window was rotted, gates were falling over, no handrails, open electrical boxes. This was the big one. The exterior north wall of the second story has water stains and mold throughout. No one had said anything. And then also in the attic, the majority of the north side of the roof is covered in mold. Evaluation by a mold remediation contractor is needed. That's a pretty big deal when you're selling a house. Needless to say, I wasn't very happy. I went back to the original contractors and said, hey, what's the deal with this mold? And they said, oh, we did a test. I'm thinking, when you walk through the house, you didn't even pop your head in the attic? Like, anyone would do that. So I think they knew about it and just didn't say anything about it. At this point, I realized I had made a huge mistake. I was not working with good people, and I had no control over it because I wasn't there. So I decided to take things into my own hands, fired the agents, took the listing down, found someone else to help me list it. Then I started getting quotes. Got a lot of horrible feedback about the drop ceiling. I didn't even know what it looked like. Got someone in to fix that. Had a couple quotes on the mold. Was not cheap. Got someone in to fix that. Then we listed it. And still, it sat. Meanwhile, my hard money loan came up for renewal. And of course, I had to pay a fee to extend it. Turns out I only ended up extending it for 1 month because we got it under contract again. But still, cost me an extra $2,000. Not helpful. The new buyers They went through and inspected it, and it was kind of a handyman buyer. Oh, they offered $195. So again, I'm still losing money, but at the end of the day, I just want out. I ended up having to replace the bay window and do a few more minor changes, which I got the handyman in to do, and then we finally sold it. Here are my numbers. So I ran this at the beginning. Purchase price, $159,900. Repairs, 28 grand. Sales price, I've lowered this from the 265. We'll put the 245 because I thought I was being good using the lower end, and then the taxes. So we have all these expenses. So this fancy little sheet basically calculates the fees that I'm paying the lender, the repairs. These are my monthly mortgage payments that I'm making. So that's not cheap. So these are all my holding costs. And so that means cost basis is that's what I'm into it for. So at month 0, I'm in for 193, right? And I sold for 195. Then down here, you see this is the anticipated sales price, these are our closing costs, and this is our profit. So if we had bought it and sold it in the same month, we were going to make $43,000. That's a great deal. So, but we know we're doing rehab for a couple months, then we're going to list it. So let's hope we sell it right away. We're still going to make 40 grand. Okay, maybe it goes a couple months, 36 grand. No problem. Like, I can live with that. However, when we drop this down to 185, we lose money on day 1. We lose a lot of money in month 5. I was just hemorrhaging money as the longer that it went. So I just wanted out of the house because I didn't want it to cost anymore. So my cost basis ended up being just about 200 grand. All the things in yellow here were extra expenses that I had to tack on. Oh yeah, let me show you this. So one of the things that showed up in the inspection was they had painted the kitchen cabinets rather than replace them. And within weeks, the paint was cracking. You could tell the installation was terrible. There were gaps. It really was a case of just like, they call it putting lipstick on a pig. Just a really poor job. And again, because I didn't go out and see it, I didn't know. So I ended up repairing the paint, had to fix that drop ceiling, had to contain the mold, ended up replacing some windows, cleaned out the sewer line. Oh yeah, radon. They tested for radon, so we had to put in a radon mitigation. Locksmith, miscellaneous inspection items, and then my extension of my loan. So that's a good chunk of money extra. So when we got to closing, we sold for $195,000. Also gave the sellers a credit of about $4 grand. I ended up owing $182,000 at closing, which meant I walked home with $13,500 in my pocket. But that was money I had already spent, and I had spent above that. So I lost just over 20 grand on that in the end, which sounds horrible, and it is not ideal. Could have been far, far worse. Could have just been sitting on the house for a year and never selling it because it was so poorly renovated. But we managed to get rid of it. So what mistakes did I make? First of all, I didn't ask enough questions. The loan ended up being hard money with fees and interest instead of a line of credit. Had I asked a lot of questions up front, I would have figured that out. Maybe I would have decided not to take it. The friend that I got referred to by the lender should have done a lot more digging there. I did ask them for references, which you should always do. Hey, can I talk to some people that you've worked with? And they told me, no, we can't do that because of confidentiality. Big red flag. And I felt it, but I kind of bought into it because I was so excited about being able to do this deal. And the reality is, confidentiality aside, someone who has worked with someone and they've done a good job for them should be willing to talk to me. And if they're not, then even if I miss a good deal, I'm going to pass. I ended up getting connected with 2 or 3 other people who had also worked with this same lender and this same agent and had all lost money or were in the process of losing money on deals. So I feel like they're not giving out references because they don't have any. I made the mistake of trusting their numbers, like their resale estimates, because they were local and I thought they were ethical. Clearly, they were just trying to pitch a good deal. And lastly, I didn't go visit the property myself. Even the biker bar. I did buy it sight unseen, but it was $6,000, not $160,000. And I flew out to see it right away before doing any work. And I flew out to see the work while it was in progress. If you can't go, then you send someone that you trust to check it out. Had I had someone on site checking on the rehab, they could have said, like, they're not doing a really good job. I stuck my head in the attic and there's mold up there. I think those were the key things. It's really, you need to get to know people and build a relationship with them before you ever let them take charge of your money or your project. So I made some mistakes, but it was a learning experience. I came out alive, and now I'm better prepared to know that as much research as I can do in advance for Spain, I will not be buying any property until I can walk the streets, understand the neighborhoods, look at the properties. There's so much I need to learn. And even though I'm impatient, I will take the time to do it properly so that I don't end up in this situation again. And hopefully now that you've watched this video, neither will you. Right, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.